Recording. All right. Hi, everyone. This is Krista Gervon with Princeton Integrative Health. I'm the communications director, and I'm joined with Dr. Conny Garefino, our chiropractor and functional medicine practitioner. And this is the D.R.E.S.S for Health Success, week 2, which is the R, and that stands for rest. So today we'll be talking all things rest and why it's so important for our overall health and well-being. So, Dr. Conny, can you give us a brief overview of the science of sleep and why it's so important to our overall health?
Sure. So sleep is one of the most important pillars of our health. And I think one of the biggest things that gets missed is our sleep environment. So before we really kind of dive into the science of it, I just want to give a definition of what the sleep foundation defines as a proper sleep environment. And that is having a bedroom environment and daily routine that promotes consistent, uninterrupted sleep. So if we go off of that definition, then we can kind of dive a little bit into the science of why it's so important to our overall health. And if we have poor quality sleep, we notice in just a few systems that where it's severely deteriorating to our health. So we notice that brain function decreases, our body weight can increase, we see issues with digestive health, and we see issues with muscle recovery when we have poor sleep. So clinically, that translates into symptoms where we have issues with attention, we have decreased memory function, we have brain fog, and then we also see an upregulation of our sympathetic nervous system, which is the nervous system for fight or flight. We also see that metabolically we'll have reduced blood glucose tolerance. We see elevated blood sugar, which puts us into like a pre-diabetic state. Poor sleep can also cause elevated blood pressure. We see a reduction in leptin, in the hormone leptin, which is our satiety hormone. It tells us when we are satiated after we're eating or when we should stop eating. So with poor sleep, we're hungry more often. Mm-hmm. We also see a disruption in the cortisol and melatonin balance, and as well as mood changes. You know, people are depressed and they are sad when they're not getting good sleep. It also suppresses our immune system. So if you have poor quality sleep all the time, you may be getting sick more often or have a harder time recovering when you do get sick. And then lastly, it causes systemic inflammation. And I believe we spoke last week and I mentioned how inflammation is one of the major, if not the single most important cause in most disease states. It starts with inflammation. So that's kind of the science behind a lot of the clinical symptoms and things that we'll see when quality of sleep is struggling.
Yeah, no, there's so much information. We don't really think of sleep as, as so scientific, but there really is so much that occurs and why it's important for our health. But so if anyone who's watching is having trouble sleeping, what could be the cause of that?
So there's a number of things that can cause issues with sleep. One of the first places that we take a look at would be the HPA axis, or hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which is basically how your brain communicates with your adrenal glands. Our adrenal glands are what help to dictate our cortisol awakening response and our cortisol and melatonin balance throughout the day. It's also how we manage stress. So if we have issues with our adrenal glands or that HPA axis, it disrupts the production of cortisol, which can affect our sleep. Mm-hmm. Another thing to consider is gut health, because so much of our melatonin is actually produced in our gut. If we have gut dysbiosis and issues there, then it's going to affect the amount of melatonin that we can produce. And then lastly, another really good reason why people might be having trouble sleeping is the lack of sleep hygiene, which we can kind of dive into just tips on sleep hygiene a little bit later.
Okay, awesome. And then, so I wanted to give a couple fun facts. We did this in our last Zoom about diet. But this was really interesting to me. 2 hours of sleep before midnight is worth 4 hours of sleep after midnight to your adrenal glands, just to kind of piggyback off of your talk about the adrenal glands. But
Yeah.
that's so interesting.
It is. And I didn't mention it before, but when we are sleeping, it's our major restorative time. It's our healing and our recharging time of the day. So our kidneys and our liver are the most active that they'll be throughout the entire day. And those are our major detoxification organs. So if we aren't getting good quality sleep on top of affecting the adrenal glands, it's also going to be affecting our detoxification process, which really is is everything. I mean, we can't continue our daily lives without proper detoxification.
Right. Okay, well, you mentioned there are some tips. So if anyone out there is having trouble sleeping, what are some tips that you would recommend to help them kind of, get their rest and fall asleep easier?
Sure. So I mentioned this term sleep hygiene before, and there's a few components to having good sleep hygiene, but one of the biggest things is light. So artificial light, for every hour that you're exposed to artificial light after sunset, your melatonin is reduced by 22%. So that living room light, that bedroom light that you walk in and just switch on, all of the TVs and the screens that you're exposed to are all going to help to decrease that melatonin, which is going to affect your sleep quality. The other thing that's worth mentioning about melatonin is it is very, very protective against cancer. So just getting proper sleep and having that good melatonin balance could help to prevent cancer.
So we all have natural melatonin in our bodies, but we take supplements for it to make up for the melatonin that we're losing basically from the artificial light.
Well, sometimes I recommend melatonin supplementation. It's not good for everybody. Some people get very crazy vivid dreams when they take melatonin. So in an ideal world, we work on habits that help to increase our melatonin naturally. And one of the ways that I encourage people to do that is, number one, where we start to decrease light after sunset. So turning on Himalayan salt lamps that have a lower lux value can help to increase melatonin naturally in the evening. But then when you're waking up in the morning, getting sunlight on your face as soon as possible when you wake up is going to help your body to recognize that it's daytime, let's increase cortisol, and will help to signal that it's time to wake up. So it's all about retraining that circadian rhythm when you're working on increasing cortisol in the morning and having it decrease at night, and then increasing melatonin in the evening and having it be lower in the morning. So you want to sleep in a dark room. You want to switch to red or amber lights at nighttime. Use blue blocking glasses after dark, and really just focusing on dimming the lights. Another piece of sleep hygiene is temperature. Sleeping in a cooler room is very, very important. You need to keep your core body temperature lower. So somewhere between 65 and 72 degrees is really what the research is showing to keep that core body temperature lower. You can, if you have a hard time getting, you get hot at night, foam or latex mattresses can trap heat. So moving away from something like that, having those mattress toppers and things like that can really increase body heat. You could try sleeping with less clothes on. I always recommend avoiding a really hot shower right before bed. Although sometimes if you do take a hot shower about an hour before bed, then making sure that you get cold afterwards, that will bring your core body temperature down and will actually help to induce sleep. But definitely don't do things like a hot sauna before bed, because that really raises that core body temperature. We don't want to exercise really anytime after 6 p.m. because that raises our core body temperature as well. You need movement throughout the day, but not too close to bedtime.
Okay.
Another piece of sleep hygiene which is huge, is meditation or breath work. I also like to throw gratitude journaling into that because it does help to relax the brain. But research shows that meditation shifts your body from a sympathetic or fight or flight state into a parasympathetic state, which is our rest and digest state. So it really prepares you for sleep. It relaxes your brain. You'll want to focus on turning off pretty much everything about an hour before bed. Turn off the TV, turn off your phone, turn off music, like work on silence for about an hour before bed. That really helps your body sink into, okay, it's time for sleep. It's about the routine of getting ready for sleep. I always mention that I'd like people to turn their devices on airplane mode, if you can, have them out of your bedroom completely. But definitely on airplane mode. We don't want that EMF disrupting our sleep. And then, lastly is let's not be eating too close to bedtime. So at least 2.5 hours before you're going to go to bed, you want to stop eating. You want to stop drinking caffeine for sure. That can definitely affect sleep. Alcohol is another really big one that will disrupt people's sleep. You can see it, on an Oura ring. If you aren't normally a drinker and you have a glass of wine, it severely affects your sleep when you wake up the next day. So, and your recovery time is off. One of the biggest questions I get is, what time should we go to sleep?
Yeah.
And it's different for everybody. It kind of depends on the person, but generally sometime between 9 p.m. and midnight is the time that I recommend people going to sleep. And then it's really individualized after that. Our kidneys and our liver are most active between the hours of 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. So if you can be asleep for sure between those times, but everybody's a little different. So it just kind of depends on you as a person. Those are all the biggest things for sleep hygiene.
That's so interesting about the kidneys. So they're just working while you're resting.
Mm-hmm. Which is also why we don't want to eat.
Right.
Because we don't want to be burdening our digestive system while our body is trying to regenerate and recycle and rest. And we don't want to be digesting food at that point. It's too much of a burden.
Right. And just another fun fact, because going off of, what to do before sleep to prepare your body and to be able to fall asleep quickly, that man is the only mammal that willingly delays sleep.
It's so interesting.
You want to stay up and catch that extra show, or
right.
You need the extra time away from your kids to decompress.
Yep.
Even though your body's like, I'm ready to go to sleep. So yeah, I don't know.
We really can learn so much by watching nature. I mean, cats and dogs and everything, they sleep
all day.
When it's time to sleep, they go to sleep. Even kids. I mean, you can pay attention to your kids, and they really don't. When they need sleep, they need sleep. My son will tell me it's time for me to go to bed. He's only 4. And I'm like, okay, let's, I know it's only 7:15 and you don't usually go to bed until 8, but let's get ready because your body knows better than I do.
Definitely.
Yeah. Don't restrict your sleep.
Yeah.
It's very important.
Just, because there's just so much stimulation, we don't want to miss out on anything. And
right.
there's anyway. Okay. So we've gone over so much today. What if someone's tried everything, all the tips that you gave, they've tried all those things, but they still really can't either fall asleep or get meaningful rest?
Well, then I would say it's time to find an integrative medicine practitioner, because we're able to really, on paper, evaluate that HPA axis function or dysfunction, how your brain is communicating with your adrenal glands. We evaluate gut health, we look at blood sugar, we look at hormone health, and we check it all on a functional level to see if there's issues, not waiting until we get to a disease state, but in a more pre-disease state.
Right.
So that we can help to incorporate all of these lifestyle changes that we talked about today, and potentially dietary changes and supplement, recommendations and things like that based on you. So if you have kind of feel like you've tried everything, then, there's so much information out there too, that sometimes you just need some more specific guidance for you individually. And then lastly, I think it's really important to mention that we as a society are we breathe much more out of our mouths than we are supposed to. We really should be breathing through our noses. And so having your jaw evaluated by a functional dentist to see how, if your airways are developed properly, if they're open and they're strong, if you do find that you tend to sit and breathe through your mouth, or you notice that you're snoring, breathing through your mouth, that is a really, really good reason to go and have an evaluation by a functional dentist. Breathing through your mouth doesn't properly filter air the way that it's supposed to, when we have, this lovely system of breathing through our nose that filters out all of the toxins. And that's not the case with our mouth. And it can lead to asthma, it can lead to allergies and brain fog and ADD and ADHD. It can also lead to gut health issues. So a lot of things can be affected by breathing through your mouth. I love the resource, The Dental Diet by Dr. Stephen Lin. He talks about why we as a society have an improper developed jaw. A lot of it comes from lack of breastfeeding when babies are young, and usage of pacifiers is another huge one that really messes with the development of people's jaws. And then deficiency in fat-soluble vitamins, so A, D, E, and K, which are often found in organ meats, and sunshine, which none of us really get enough of, especially in New Jersey.
Not around here.
Not around here. It takes a lot of effort to get enough sunshine. So his book is great and talks a lot about why we might have jaw development issues and breathing issues that can lead to disrupted sleep and a whole, gamut of other health issues. So find an integrative doctor, have your jaw evaluated by a functional dentist if you're really still struggling with sleep and have tried all of these tips and tricks.
Yeah. And you can always call us to schedule a discovery session or health strategy session and speak with one of our functional medicine practitioners. And unless there's anything else, I can open up to some questions. We have one viewer on Facebook. And then Sandy, if you have any questions, please feel free to either unmute yourself or you can pop it in the chat. Such good information today. I'll go ahead and put our phone number in here just so people know that they can call to get an evaluation if they need one. And then next week, we'll be talking about exercise as it relates to our overall health, the E in the D.R.E.S.S for health success.
Yep, lots of good information for that one too.
Okay, well, we have no other questions on Facebook or on the Zoom. So unless you have any other last minute suggestions or tips on sleep and last words on it, please feel free.
I don't think so. Thanks so much, Krista.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Connie. Thank you, Sandy, for joining us. And we'll see you next week at 12 to talk about exercise. Thanks again.
Yeah.
Bye.